It's day 102, and we are in Leviticus chapter 12. Join us now for a word for today. Want to wish you a good morning. Thanks for being with us. We are not alone. We are here together this morning with Pierre, Fleur. I know him as JP. You can call him JP. JP, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pastor V. I'm well, thanks, and yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. For those who don't know, you are a third-year theology student at Heidelberg College. Thanks for accepting this invitation. So, Leviticus chapter 12 is a short chapter. There are only 8 verses. What is your word for today from this chapter?
Okay, Pastor V. So my word for today is circumcised.
Circumcised. Okay, this is the first time that we've had the word circumcised featuring as our word for today. We've come across it before on our journey. Where can we find it? What verse number in Leviticus chapter 12?
Okay, so you can find it in Leviticus chapter 12, verse 3.
Verse 3, okay. And if you'd be so kind to read that.
Sure. So I'm reading from the Maximized Living Version, and
Okay.
it says, on the 8th day, the boy must be circumcised.
So it's the first time we've had, let me just say, the maximized living version. And so this is a great opportunity to hear it. It's not only a short chapter, but I believe this is the shortest verse. And we can see there, circumcised on the 8th day. Why did you choose that word circumcised?
Okay, Pastor B. So it was actually quite interesting because I've read the chapter before, but when I looked at the title of it, it's entitled Rules for New Mothers. So I was like, okay, I'm not a mother, but I do relate to the circumcision part. And it's actually an unfortunate thing because I was one of the unlucky ones who was not circumcised at birth. So in my late teen years, I had to live through the experience, and it wasn't the most pleasant of experiences. So I related to that word.
Okay, so you related, and that's important. Oftentimes people have chosen words because it's repeated a lot in the chapter, or as you've said, they have a personal experience. It speaks to them personally. Now, what lessons, for maybe someone hasn't had the same experience as you, what lessons can we take from this word, from this chapter, from what we're reading here?
Okay, so it's actually quite interesting because when I was doing some reading on the word circumcision, I wanted to understand, okay, why did the Jews or the Israelites, practice circumcision? And what I came across is that um, it was actually a symbol of their devotion to God, so they believed that when they are circumcised, they it will basically show that they are loyal and faithful servants of God. So it was actually quite interesting because this picture that is painted in the Old Testament is sort of revoked in the New Testament. When Paul says uh, that circumcision is not important and it's more important to be circumcised in heart. So I found that quite interesting and quite powerful, because uh, the lessons that we can learn is that it's much more better to be circumcised in heart than just by the outside.
Okay, so we have a short chapter, as we've said, only 8 verses, short verse, dealing with the word circumcision. Let's just take a look. You've already taken us to the Apostle Paul, what he has said, just so people have a bigger picture. Let's just take a look at a few verses. The first time circumcision appears, we see it in Genesis chapter 17, and I'm going to invite our viewers at home just to follow along with us as we just present an overview of circumcision in the Bible. So Genesis chapter 17, I'm going to read verses 10 and 11. And this is what it says. And JP, you are with your maximize living version. So as I'm reading from the King James Version, if you see something interesting in comparison in your paraphrase, then do let us know. So Genesis chapter 17, verses 10 and 11, first time circumcision is being mentioned. And this is what it says. This is my covenant, God says, which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. And verse 11 says, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin. And what is the reason for this? It tells us, and it shall be a token, it shall be a sign of the covenant betwixt me and you. And so here we have that circumcision was a sign, was a token of the relationship, a covenantal relationship between the Israelites, God's people, and him. So this was a physical representation, a physical signification, a sign of their relationship with God. Is there anything that you see there in your version, in your translation?
So in place of the word token, whereas you have used my version, says this will be a sign to follow the agreement between me and you.
Mm-hmm. So it talks about membership in this covenantal relationship. Not only membership, but fellowship and relationship. This is a sign between God's people and him. Now let me just take you quickly, before you share more lessons with us, to Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 16. Deuteronomy 10 verse 16. And it's interesting, this goes along with what you have said, JP. Before the Apostle Paul says what he says, Deuteronomy 10 verse 16 says, circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked. Stiff-necked, if your neck is stiff, it's rigid. You're being stubborn. You're not. And so here we have the real reason, or the purpose, more than just the physical. The physical was supposed to be an expression of the spiritual, the internal, that submission to God. And so here we are told to circumcise the foreskin of your heart. Of course, your heart doesn't have foreskin, but it's symbolic. Finally, for me, before we get back to you, JP, and further lessons, let's go to Romans. Go into what Paul says, and Paul does say a lot, and we'll just take a little part of it. Romans chapter 2, and looking at verses 28 and 29, the last two verses of Romans chapter 2, and we hope at home that you're able to follow along with us. And it says, for he is not a Jew. By the way, the previous verses, he's been dealing with circumcision, uncircumcision, and he keeps on going. And then he wraps up his conversation. He concludes, he summarizes by saying in Romans 2, verse 28, for he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh. Verse 29 says, but he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God. And this relates to what he says in Galatians chapter 3, verse 29. You can note that down. Well, let me just read it for you. It says, and if ye be Christ's, then are ye Abraham's seed, and heirs according to the promise. Well, JP, circumcision, let's keep on talking about it. What other lessons, is there anything else that you want to share with us about circumcision?
I think the main point that stood out for me, Pastor B, was the circumcision of heart. When I relate to the experience of circumcision and being present in that situation, it's quite a visual and a graphic picture, because it's the foreskin being chopped off, and so for me, I see it as every day we need to be circumcised by God. We need to allow ourselves to submit and be humble to Him so that He can cut off the parts in our lives that are not important and that are unlike Him. So
Mm,
for me, I just think that it's definitely important to submit to Him and allow Him to lead in our lives. So
mm.
that's my
And
my
you
word.
made an important and significant and relevant point there, JP, that this is something which was very graphic. And throughout our journey so far, we've seen, even with the tabernacle, with the sanctuary, with the offerings and the sacrifices, when God appeared on Mount Sinai, with the earth quaking, with the mountain on fire, with the smoke ascending, God wanted to impress these lessons, these principles upon his children. And so here we have a constant reminder. Not only was it significant at the time of circumcision, but this would be with them. This would stay with them. This would be a constant reminder of their relationship with God, their oath, their covenant. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we've already seen what Paul has said, and even Moses, what he says in Deuteronomy, that importance of the circumcision of the heart, that we commit completely and wholeheartedly to God. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I don't know, JP, if you have any last words, last thoughts, anything else that you want to say this morning on circumcision.
I think the main lesson, because circumcision is an outward appearance, I think it's more important to focus on the inside. Sometimes we often try to live up to a standard what we think people want to see, or even to the
Mm,
expectations of other people. But what is the heart of the matter is the heart of the matter, as they
mm,
say. And it's important to focus on what's inside. So that's
mm.
what I can say.
I like that. Thank you so much for leaving us with those encouraging and thought-provoking words. Based on what we've talked about and shared this morning, JB, can I invite you to pray?
Sure. Let's close our eyes. Father in heaven, we just want to thank you that we could come together today and just spend some time in your word. Lord, I pray that you will circumcise our hearts today, that you will remove the aspects of our lives that are unlike you. I pray that you will continue to work in us. I pray that you will lead us in a special way. Please bless all the viewers and Pastor B and his team as well. Thank you for your love and your mercies. Forgive us now where we have failed you and wash us anew, dear Lord. This we ask in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much once again, JP, for leading us through that. You focused particularly on verse 3. But for those who are watching, if there was any other verse which stood out for you and there were other things talked about apart from circumcision, if there's anything you would like to share with us, let us know in the comments section below. Any more questions on circumcision or maybe the blood flow spoken about in this chapter, let's connect, let's interact, let's engage in the comment section. But for now, from JP and myself, we want to wish you a blessed day as you submit and surrender to God and as God works wonderfully in your life. It's goodbye from JP.
God bless.
And
Bye.
it's goodbye from me. God bless you.